Joined by the #1 producer in the A, Proof of Knowledge.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
But I wanted it to be something that we kind of just released music under. It wasn't until after high school we actually took a senior trip to California, and we ended up coming back, and we were so inspired by that trip, we were like, we should start music now.
Give me your Mount Rushmore
So,
producers. Welcome to Catching a Vibe. This is episode 19. I'm your host, Drew. And today, I'm joined by the #1 producer in the A, the second best podcast host in the A.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean...
I'll take number 2, it's okay. But if I could be number 1 at something, that's a plus. So
Producer, hey, you have more years in there.
Yeah.
So how are we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Like I said, I appreciate you for having me.
I appreciate you
Just
reaching
wanna-
out to me.
Yeah, because like I said, I think what you're doing here, this format and everything, is great, and it's good to meet someone in the city too that is doing great work and wants to support what I'm doing, wants to support what you're doing. So
For sure.
excited to be here, man. So
Let's get into it. So I think it's wild that we went to the same school and have never met before.
yeah,
Never
I was gonna
talked.
say, because did you even go to Lexington by chance?
I went to Lexington kindergarten to 3rd grade.
Okay,
4th and
so
5th
you
I went to
were-
Washington.
Okay, so yeah, I was probably either gone or just like a bit like a few years ahead of you, I guess, at that
Mhm.
point. But I remember you, even in probably middle school too. I remember like seeing you and like some of your friends and stuff around. And I was like,
Right.
don't know anything about these guys, but I've seen them. I've seen
Yeah.
your face. I've heard your name before. So, but yeah, Marlington. I went there. Yeah, I went to Lexington, and then the middle school and high school. So, I was there the whole time. A lot of my friends, they went to like Parkway and stuff.
Okay.
Or they went to Alliance, and then they like ended up transferring to Marlington later on.
hmm
So, but what are your Marlington opinions? Your
I
hot
was just
takes?
about to ask you what your...
I mean, my school experience was probably different than a lot of people because like I played sports for a little bit. So I played basketball in like 6th grade, and then actually no, I played 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and then I
Okay.
gave it up. Because I just really wasn't into like the whole competitive and the parents getting at each other and shit and
Right.
all kinds of stuff. I know my friends always wanted me to like try out for football. I was like, dude, no, it's not gonna fucking happen. So just get it out of your head now.
Chase wanted you to?
Chase, they always wanted me to play quarterback. I'm like, dude, look at me right now. Look at the skinny arms. Like I'm not gonna play quarterback. I'm gonna get my ass kicked. That's not gonna happen. They're like, well, you got an arm. Like anybody could have an arm
In the
like,
backyard.
Yeah, in the backyard. And the football is like this little thing. I'm like, no, it's not gonna happen. So I basically just. I played basketball. I was even on the soccer team for a little bit, so I played 8th grade. I remember 8th grade was kind of where I was done with sports, and I knew I was going to kind of be like finished. And for some reason, the coach wanted me to join the high school team. He kept recruiting me. I'm like, dude, I'm the worst player on this team.
Don't
What
you
are
feel like
doing?
this shit, though, when the high school coaches
A little
recruiting
bit,
you?
but at that point, like I said, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to work out. So I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. So I appreciate the gesture, but it's not going to go anywhere. So I did play. I did like a church league for basketball for a little bit afterwards, like in high school during the winter time. So I did that, but at that point, I already knew that it wasn't going to be a legitimate thing like sports, and I had no desire to pursue it as a real like career or anything.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just a winding down point to where it was going to be done. I did play baseball too when I was a kid. Like I played little league and stuff because my dad grew up a big baseball guy, and he played. So
Gotcha.
me and my brother kind of just played because he did, I guess. But again, it was the same thing. It was like competitive parents like trying to say, oh well, my kid's better than your kid, all this stuff, which it happens at all levels, I guess. But when you're young, it's just tough because you're just like, I want to enjoy this, like, and have fun with my friends. I don't want to fucking be thinking about, who's winning this or doing this stuff. So that's just kind of what it was for me, at least. But yeah, tough. But I knew right away that it wasn't going to be, for me, the right move. So
yeah.
But
well, I was about the opposite. Baseball was my first
I saw you
love.
play football.
Football,
yeah.
8th grade, loved it. Wasn't very good yet.
Oh.
Then grinded, got better.
Were you like running back or something? Or?
I was receiver and corner.
Okay.
And kick return.
Nice.
Freshman year I was QB. They used to
you
call
were-
me Johnny Football. The real ones know me
Because
as
that was
Johnny
back.
Football.
That was back probably when Manziel was
Yes.
playing too.
Yes.
2014.
Yes.
Yep.
I remember it was the second game of my freshman year. Chris Andrews. Do you remember Chris Andrews?
I went to basketball camp with him a couple times because he was like a grade ahead of me. So yeah, I remember Chris.
He was the QB, and he went down, and like all
You
the
had to
like
come in?
upperclassmen
Oh god,
loves me. And they're like, Johnny, you're about to
You're
get
in?
in. I was like, there ain't no
Were
way.
you just like
So
nervous as hell?
I
Like,
was
oh, God.
so nervous.
So
I
it wasn't
didn't go in.
It wasn't the JV. It was the actual.
No, it was
the
varsity.
game?
Yeah. It was varsity.
Oh, God. Who were they? Who were they
And
playing?
Chris Pinnell went in,
Oh,
and the
okay.
rest is history.
Yeah. Who
So
were they
what could
playing?
have been?
Do you remember the opponent? NBC opponent at the
It
time,
wasn't.
probably? No.
It was league.
Oh, so it was probably like a week 1 or 2 game.
It was
It was
week
like St.
2.
Thomas week or something.
St. Thomas,
Yeah.
I almost went at cornerback because one of the corners was getting torched.
He just kept getting beat off the line or something.
Over top,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm starting to do jumping jacks on the sideline, getting ready to get in.
See, it was cool for me, like in high school too, because again, some of my buddies played or they were on JV, so they would be on the sidelines. So the rest of us would just go to the games and stand on the fence, and we would just, talk the whole time and just be like, "Fuck you, man," or like Jalen, for example, like his last game of high school. I'm like, "Okay, Jay, it's 2-point conversion. I want to see you stop him right here." He gets beat off the line and just gets freaking demolished. And we're just like, no, what the hell? And then, like, the very last play, he gets beat on another 2-point conversion for a touchdown. I'm like, that was it? That's how you're going to go out? Come on, man.
Jalen was such a stud. Him and Chase, love those boys.
Him trying to play receiver, though. Awkward. He's an awkward runner. He's an awkward runner and an awkward catcher.
You should have seen Coach Young with Jalen.
They got so many stories about that, and I knew Marcus too, so I already know about that whole thing.
Yeah,
but crazy.
So let's get into proof of knowledge.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about it.
So that was that was me and Jalen's thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been 5 years now. So 2018, we had just started music a couple years before, so we were doing music, and we wanted kind of like an identity or a brand to go under. Mm-hmm. And we're fans of labels like Dreamville for J. Cole. Rick Ross has like a Maybach Music, you know what I mean, like a label or something that people can know you by.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really want it to be a label where we sign people, because we're and I'm still not in a position to like sign anyone.
Right.
But I wanted it to be something that we kind of just released music under. So we just I remember he drew the logo, like the little heart and the brain thing together, and it kind of means like when you put yourself out there, and everyone always says it's like the heart versus the mind, like your logical sides and your emotional sides are always at war.
Right.
What if it was like more of a marriage where they're both acting together, and you're really your best self when you do that? So that's kind of like the idea around the whole brand and everything. So we started doing that, releasing music under the name, and then we came up with the podcast originally where we did like end of the year album reviews and stuff. So we would do, what are our favorite albums of 2019, and then we'd review certain things. We'd even do sports stuff. Like we kind of just made it more free form.
Yeah.
And then around the time of the pandemic, I wanted to shift it to where it's more consistent. Mm-hmm. And I was like, because I knew the podcast was something I wanted to keep doing, but it kind of wasn't getting any traction, and it wasn't really tailored to a certain audience or anything. Mm-hmm. So I knew that since it was music-centric brand already, why not make it to where I interview musicians like every week? And I heard a podcast called It's the Real. It's like a music podcast with two brothers, and they interview different artists. And they were doing a series at the time. Would interview 3 artists a day, and they would do it on their phone because they couldn't leave the house because they were in New York, and it was on complete lockdown.
Yeah.
So I heard that, and I'm like, that would be cool to kind of do that with people that I know. So I just started reaching out to artists that I had made connections with and asking them if they wanted to do the show. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people said, yeah, man, that would be awesome. So I just kind of started making a guest list, and I still have the same guest list in my phone, just like still running and just adding names to it. And every week I just started doing that, and we are on 155 now. So it's been, next month it'll be 3 years officially of just doing it every week. I take 1 week off a year, and it's that week of Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
So I get to that point, and I'm just like, I tell the audience, thanks for listening this year. We'll be back in 2 weeks. But that's the only week I take off. So I made it like a thing to go every week, and then just take that last week off for myself and for everybody else for the holidays. So
that week off is so good for the mental.
Refreshes everything, and make sure you're right and you're planned for the next year too. So, and I always record in advance too. Like a month in advance with my episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A month.
Got to get real in depth, because for me it's like I'm trying to balance that with everything else in life. So I want to make sure I'm keeping that consistency going. So I always make sure, that I have the guests picked out and reach out to them a couple weeks in advance, get things ready, and just get it going. And it's somehow worked. So I guess it's just gonna, keep evolving and continuing to grow. And I'm just grateful that people want to be on the show and have reached out to me, and that even when I reach out to them, they get back to me. And it's always a great opportunity, because who doesn't want to be on a podcast?
Right.
Like, that's why I'm here. So I want to be on this podcast. So
it's just a chill vibe.
It's a great opportunity, and it's a good conversation. So, hopefully that can continue. But Proven Knowledge overall is just, it's a brand that we're able to put out a lot of creative material under and make cool stuff. So it's kind of our own thing, I guess.
No, that's cool. You build it up from the ground.
Yeah. For real. And I got to give credit to Jalen, because again, he really like came up with the logo, the name, all that stuff, and just kind of like helped me get it going. Because I can come up with good ideas, but I'm not as good as he is at coming up with certain things, like even how he songwrites, where he'll hear a beat and then he'll have the hook like in 5 minutes, and he'll just be ready to go. That's so how it's always been with us. Is he's just so good at coming up with shit on the spot. So it's just always been that way, and I got to give him credit as well for his part in it. So
So you said you guys were talking about music in high school then?
Yeah, we were. I mean, I've known him since second grade, so like 2004, and we always connected like on the music tip about like our favorite artists and stuff. And then we didn't hang out much in middle school, because we didn't have classes together or anything. We didn't really see each other.
Ain't that the worst, though?
It does,
man. Not getting the
I
same
look
classes.
back on middle school overall, it's just a very like tumultuous time, like not great for me at all. It was kind of like a rough time that I had to get through.
Right.
But we kind of reconnected in like freshman year, getting back on, being fans of music. And I think it was even down here at Silver Park, we would go play basketball, and we'd be like, oh, what are you listening to today or whatever, and just start talking about music. And then, throughout high school, he would just always say, he wanted to try rapping and doing the rap thing and stuff. And I started studying music production in like 2012, so freshman year, and I just spent that whole time studying. And it wasn't until after high school, we actually took a senior trip to California, and we ended up coming back, and we were so inspired by that trip, we were like, we should start music now. You know what I mean? And his uncle actually was in a group back in the day, so that's who we stayed with that week, and he was kind of just encouraging us. He's like, if you guys love it, I can't guarantee it's going to become anything, but you might as well start and just see where it goes. Right. Because you don't want to look back and say, that you just didn't try at all, because then you just don't know what's going to happen. So I think it was just that mixed with the inspiration of seeing like that creative space, because California is really, it's so much different than here where we are in the Midwest, where it's like, this is a very blue collar traditional area where there's art and it exists, but it's not prevalent. It's not everywhere that you go. Yeah. And traditional careers are kind of the only thing that people see here. Right. So a place like California, it's a lot more open to, there's a lot of different avenues you can go, and creativity is more welcomed. A lot of people are artists. Being an artist is a normal career out there. You know what I mean? So it was kind of that inspiration mixed with just being encouraged as well by them to just start. And so we did, and we bought equipment. I got my laptop, got a MIDI keyboard, audio interface, and we just started working. And we would just go, because my one friend who lives literally right down the road, we would go to his house in the top of his freaking attic, or not really attic, but the upstairs, in like a spare bedroom. And we would just start recording songs, and just making the shittiest songs you've ever heard. But we just did it because
you gotta start somewhere, man. I was telling Timmy, I was like, dude, Timmy was like, "Oh, my music at the start was dog shit."
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, "Timmy, like, it wasn't that
You
bad."
got to give
like,
yourself permission to be bad to
right.
end up being good eventually, and that's what I mean. I think a lot of people start out bad and then they think they'll never get past being bad,
Right.
so they just give up. It's like, no, you're supposed to be
The
bad.
more you do something,
Yeah,
the
you get
better you're going to get.
Through repetition, you get better through repetition. Just kind of doing it as much as you can. Hopefully, doing it every day, depending on what it is.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of just what we did. So like, the end of 2016, all 2017, that's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
And even like, if you talk to Jay and you ask him about his first project, it was called Self Expression. It's a mixtape. It's still on all platforms. It's still everywhere. You can listen to it everywhere. He hates it. He's like, that's shit. He's like, that's shit. Even the second project, he kind of hates that too. But I always just remind him, I'm like, well, at least it was a start. You know what I mean? It's better than, just doing nothing. Because you could have easily looked back and say, you didn't build any catalog because you never started. Mm-hmm. So you have to start somewhere.
I think that's so funny when artists like admit that they hate a certain song. Yeah. I don't know how well you know Juice WRLD, but his Lucid Dreams, he talks about, I hate that song so much.
And that was the song that he blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was just thinking about him the other day. I wasn't a huge listener of his, but I know like some producers that worked with him, and just I respected his style and what he did. Mm-hmm. Was he 19 when he passed, or was he 20?
He just turned 21.
Oh, just turned?
Yeah.
Because it was in December.
Yeah, so, like 2 days after, that's when he passed.
That's crazy.
Dude, that broke my heart.
Yeah, because it was, I think it was 2018 when he passed, or 2019. Because I remember Nipsey Hussle got killed in the spring, and then that winter was the Juice WRLD thing. Mm-hmm. I was just like, what is this year? And then the pandemic happened. I'm like, what is happening?
Then Kobe died.
Oh, my God, dude. It was too much.
Those 2 years, man.
It was too much, man.
Sucked so much losses.
Yeah. Juice WRLD, incredible musician. It would have been great to see how his career evolved as well, because he was doing a lot of like alternative mixed with trap, a lot of different styles.
Freestyling for hours on crazy. Hours.
Like he was definitely a talented musician. Like, just to see where it would have went. I kind of think he would have had a career kind of like a Tyler the Creator, where he started out in a certain lane, but he eventually evolved into different stuff.
Oh, I
could have seen that for sure, because he just had that diversity in his music. So
the man has like over 2,000 unreleased songs.
Oh my God.
And it's just like, none of it sounds the same.
For him to do that in that short amount of time too, that just goes to show like the work ethic that he had and the passion that he had for it.
He didn't care about anything other than music. Yeah, making songs.
I always say you gotta kind of go all in with what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
can't have a plan.
That's how
B.
you do it, and that's the thing. His stuff will live on forever. And he had such a short life, but it's like he'll never be forgotten just for what he did in that time.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Sure. Yeah. So you do. I like this idea. You do inspired stories. You talk about artists
every month.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where I came up with the idea. I think it was just kind of another idea for content, because I'm always trying to think of new content ideas for social media. So I started in 2021. I was just talking about artists that I was a fan of, so I did that for like 2 years. And then this year I kind of shifted it to talking about artists and producers and engineers that I have worked with, or people that I've been connected with through my podcast. So I kind of want to make it more now of a music discovery thing, where you could kind of, if you want to discover a new artist, you might see that video that I posted and be like, oh, let me check this person out. I already have a checklist of everyone that I'm going to cover this whole year. I usually record those again a month in advance, just kind of have the videos ready. And I also do, to coincide with that, I do like the Spotify playlist, where I'll put a song by that artist in there. So if people want to go hear something, they can go check out the Spotify playlist. And it's just kind of another cool content idea to do. Yeah. Kind of have like interaction. So, and support people. So, but.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, dude. So let's get into producing, making beats, all that. What's your process of making beats?
So my process it's kind of always been the same. I use FL Studio, which is, it's a DAW that's primarily for hip hop and R&B. Okay. So like when like I said, I was studying music production in high school. a lot of the producers that I was a fan of used that, and they said it was easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I always gravitated toward that. There's other ones. There's Logic Pro, Ableton, Audacity. There's different ones, and they all kind of do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of just about picking one that is good for you. So I kind of just picked it. I invested the money, so I actually bought the real thing instead of like getting the cracked version or the free version.
Right.
Because I knew that if I made the actual investment, that I would stick with it. So it was part of that kind of like telling myself, if I do this, I have to be serious about it.
Right.
So let me invest the money, and then I'll make sure that I'm actually going to get use out of it. So I just bought it and then started watching like YouTube tutorials and stuff to learn it. And my process has pretty much been the same as far as I'll always start with melody. I can't start with drums for whatever reason. There's people that can start with just a drum and build around it. I'm like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, you're different.
I envy that shit because you got to be kind of musically inclined to be able to do that, I think, where you can already hear, like, just from the BPM and, like, the metronome and just be like, oh, I know where I'm going to go with this.
Right.
I can't do that. I have to get, like, a bass melody, which is usually, like, a piano or a guitar or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just start with a loop maybe, and I'll chop it up. Or if I have a sample, I'll throw it into, like, Slice X is the name of the sample chopper that I use, and I'll just chop it up in different parts and rearrange it. And then I'll put the drums in, and then I'll start adding, like, a bass line or, you know, a counter melody, whatever needs added.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, I was putting way too many sounds in the beat.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize that you don't want to overcrowd it, especially if you're trying to work with artists. You want to give the artist space to be able to, you know, say what they need to say on it. Or even hear, you know, if they hear the beat, they want to be able to hear themselves on it. If you overcrowd it, they're going to be like, no, I don't want to write to this beat because there's too much going on.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to overdo it. So I'd say it took me like 4 or 5 years to get to the point, and I'm still trying to practice that, where I'm trying to make sure I don't load the beat up way too much with a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
I got to keep it simple, but also make it complicated. You have to find like the fine line between something that's interesting and something that is not totally, completely dead and boring. Like, you have to walk the fine line a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So it's very difficult, but just doing it every day. And I try to make like 2 to 3 ideas a day.
2 to 3 ideas.
If I can. Every morning I wake up now, I have to make something.
Yeah.
I've always been in that habit now. I'm like, to get the day started, I have to make like an idea, even if it's not good. Just to say, you know, okay, I did that, now let me move on to this other stuff. So that's really just always been the process. It's kind of just been start with the melody and then build around it, but keep it simple and interesting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But, so how long does it take to like make a full song?
I mean, it really depends on how long you want to, how much detail you want to get and put into it. For me, it's around half an hour to 45 minutes usually. It's like the good time where I have got something pretty good and it's going well. If it's going bad, it might only be like 20 minutes, and I'll be like, okay, let me add this one thing in and then just call it a day, and then move on to the next thing. So I try not to get too hung up on like certain ideas, and I really don't like to sit for a full day on one thing. I just don't. Gotcha. I know people enjoy doing that, and everybody's process is different.
Right.
Me, I'm just like, let me make this. Okay, that's good. We're going to send it off to someone, or maybe I'm using this for another project. Let me move on to the next thing. And it's always just about the next thing for me. So I don't know. It's just everybody's process is different, but for me, that's kind of how it's always been.
That's a good mindset.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah.
So who's like your favorite producer? Right other than yourself, obviously.
See, I'm not even on high on my list. Like I'm super low on my list. I'll let other people decide. You know,
you're him.
No.
Yes,
I'm not him.
You're him.
No, I'm him. I'm me. I'm not him. I'm me. But I think. I mean, I've had a lot of influences too over the years. The producer that I always have been a fan of since the beginning, and the person that I saw that, you know, produced and I kind of learned what that was Hit Boy. I don't know if you know who that is or heard that name before.
I don't think
he's worked with Juice Wrld is one of the.
Oh, really?
He's worked with so many different people: Kanye, Jay-Z.
Oh, he's
the last 4 Nas albums were all Hit Boy.
Okay.
He did all the production on those. And when I was in high school, he had a group like his own label. It was called Hits Since '87 was the name of it. And he had different producers under him, and he had some artists that he was a fan of. So I was a big fan of what he did with that, and then just him working with Kanye and Jay-Z, because I knew who they were because they were big artists. So I just started following him, and he's an artist as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's just produced so many different albums and songs, and he's a great example of a producer who has evolved with the times, because I think back in the day, the role of the producer was kind of to just stay behind the scenes, and you might not even know who the producer was unless you looked at the album credits or something. You might not have known who it was.
You guys are like the stuntmen of music.
A little bit, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, because you kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting, or like the real like bones of the song, and then you might not, people might not know who you are.
If the beat's not good, I don't think they don't like the song.
I mean, think about a lot of the stuff on radio too.
Right.
People are listening to it because they're moving to the beat.
Right.
The words could be nothing. You know what I mean? And like,
especially like music nowadays. Yeah. Like, you don't understand what dudes are saying. Yeah. You're just like,
oh, the beat's nice. That 808 is nice right there. That's nice. Right. But I think that is evolving now. Especially if you like pay attention to the producer community and kind of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Producers are becoming more like artists now, and they are more like brands, where you have to get yourself out there. You have to, start releasing music on your own, doing collab projects with different artists. And Hit Boy is someone who, he's evolved with the times. He's doing full projects for people. He's putting his name next to the artist's name on the album, so people know, oh, he did this full album. He produced this. Doing different brand partnerships, just all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of evolved from where it was to now you are basically like an artist. Yeah. And I heard there was I forget which podcast it was that I was listening to, and they were talking about, I think it was like a BeatStars podcast. They were talking about how the worst thing that producers have ever been told is that they have to remain behind the scenes. And they were like, that's killing your chances of continuing to grow, is because you think you have to be behind the scenes. It's like, no, you are a brand. You need to be putting yourself out there more. I'm not saying that every producer has to do like what we're doing here, like put your face out there all the time, or even, I don't know, go and just do a bunch of interviews and constantly be posting stuff. But if you want to get to a certain level, or you want to have consistent growth, then eventually you can't hide behind a logo. People have to see your face. People have to know your personality a little bit. You can't just be constantly behind a computer and no one ever sees your face. Even if the music's good, that's only going to take you so far. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just evolved into where, you are, in a way, an artist and a producer and a brand and all this stuff into one. So you just kind of got to figure out what that means to you and what you want to do with that. So
I like that answer.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you, give me your Mount Rushmore of producers.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that. So Mount Rushmore is what, 4 people?
Yep.
4 people. So I'm thinking about it from Mount Rushmore in general. Like, producing couldn't be made without these people. So maybe not people that I listen to all the time, but just people that, if they didn't exist, producing wouldn't be the same. Let me see. Probably Quincy Jones would be one. Do you know who Quincy Jones is? Michael Jackson Thriller.
Okay.
He produced that album, and he produced a lot of Michael Jackson stuff in the 80s. He's an old man now. He's like fucking 90, whatever years old. And he's I've heard he's kind of an asshole, but I don't know. I don't know anything about the guy.
Don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, but Quincy Jones, the importance of him, because at that time, that was kind of when music was transitioning from being traditional instruments to adding in drum machines and computers and things like that. Quincy Jones was one of the first people that you knew he was a producer. You knew like what he did, what his role was. And because Michael Jackson was such a big artist, everybody started to know who Quincy was. And he did a lot of things in film and stuff, and he still is involved in executive producing and funding a lot of things. So he's kind of like who a lot of people would credit with being one of the first big producers, especially in pop music, that everybody knew. And I think he still makes music. Like I see people talking about him all the time. He's usually at the Grammys every year and stuff. So Quincy Jones probably be one. Dr. Dre would be another one.
Oh, for sure.
For multiple reasons, because not only for music and hip hop music, but as a brand, like Beats by Dre,
Yes.
partnering with Apple, doing all this stuff. The guy's a billionaire just off of products and just off of what he's done in business. And again, the West Coast sound pretty much started with Dr. Dre, started with that whole movement. Trying to think, Jay Dilla would probably definitely be up there because he was just so impactful with what he did in his time. Really just revolutionizing hip hop and just the way producing was done, and the way that real instrumentalists talk about his music as like he was basically a real musician but just using an MPC, like a drum machine, because that's just how he played and that's just how his music was. And I actually just watched his documentary like 2 days ago that they put on FX, and I was like, this is incredible. I don't know how familiar you are with Jay Dilla, his music or anything.
Really.
He died in 2006. He had lupus, so he died at like 32 years old. But he's still revered as like one of the best producers ever, just because of he created what they call swing, which is like the drums are off tempo with the music, but it's so off that it's noticeable, but it's good, and it like bled into a bunch of other genres like neo soul and like boom bap and jazz and stuff. So Jay Dilla is kind of credited with that and being the pioneer of that. And yeah, his just impact in producing is just so huge, and definitely a fan of his sound and the people that he inspired as well. The fourth spot, I feel like that could go to a lot of people, because I don't really think there's anyone else that had an impact on everything. I think you got to throw people like Timbaland up there, where like Timbaland was and still is. He was responsible for a lot of that early 2000s sound. Everything on the radio was Timbaland. Justin Timberlake, Nelly Furtado, Carrie Hilson, all those people. Like that was all Timbaland's movement. And I read his autobiography my senior year of high school, and that was again kind of led to the inspiration for me to actually start doing it myself. I was actually in school suspension when I was like that. I got thrown in for skipping class. So I don't know if you remember Mr. Mayor at all. Remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
So he told us that if we were in there Friday, he said, if you come back Monday, or if you're in here today, you'll be in here Monday. You got to bring something to do. So I was like, I might as well, get something that I want to do so I don't have a lot of homework. So I went on Amazon and bought that book because I knew that there was like a Timbaland autobiography. I'm like, that's right up my alley. Yeah. I'm going to go buy that book. So I bought the book and I just started reading it on the Monday. And then it was so good, I just kept reading it. And I still have the book like at my house too. So it's called Emperor of Sound is the name of the book. And it's a great read. So Timbaland, obviously like people like Pharrell Williams, Kanye West, for their production alone. You don't even have to look at what they've done as entrepreneurs, what they've done as people, for music, for everything. Obviously, Kanye, he does a lot of shit that people are talking about or not talking about. But I haven't seen him in the news a lot lately, so maybe he's doing okay.
Better.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah. Hopefully it stays that way. But I always listened to Kanye stuff in high school, and I was like, man, he's still one of the best soul producers ever. He's still one of the best producers ever, just for what he's able to do. His own music, last few years, I haven't really been a huge fan of his stuff compared to the older stuff, but I still look at his producing and I'm like, god damn, he's still like one of the best producers ever. Right. So, and even like what he did last year on like Pusha T's album and stuff, I'm like, he's still one of the best, but what he does outside of that, I can't really talk about. Right. I don't know. Like, he's got his own thing, but yeah. And Pharrell, too, like, I was never a huge Pharrell Williams fan, but just, what he's done for music is just, you can't deny it. So, across all genres. So, I would definitely think of those people. The fourth spot's kind of just up for grabs, I think.
Gotcha.
But
my last question is, what's your dream collab? Who is your dream collab with?
Well, I know, obviously, like, anybody that would want to, like, connect with me, or, like, I feel like we have the same energy. I'm always down for that. I always think of, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He's originally from Massillon. You ever heard of Stally, the rapper? You ever heard of him? He's from Massillon, and then he moved to I think Brooklyn, and that's kind of where he got his start in like the blog era, which is like when all mixtapes were coming out and stuff. And he actually signed to Rick Ross to Maybach Music for a little bit of time, and now he's independent. But he's done like so much the last 15 years. His discography is just pretty in depth. He's got a ton of projects and everything. And he really, like, just seeing someone that was from, like, close to where I was from, I was like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
And he had, like, the first mixtape I found him was called Lincoln Way Nights, which Lincoln Way is, like, the main street at Massillon. So it even had, like, the Ohio flag on the cover and everything. Tough. So it was, like, it was kind of cool. And the producer that did it, his name is Rashad, and he's from Columbus. So he kind of had an Ohio thing going, and he made it. He made the whole thing kind of centered around Massillon and just Ohio culture, like car culture and all kinds of stuff about the Midwest. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I've always just followed him. I had one of his producers named Jay Patterns on my show a couple years ago. And I was just like, man, what's it like working with him? Yeah. All this stuff. And Stally has only ever seen something I've reposted like one time. And it was this past album that he dropped, and he messaged me and was like, always appreciate the support, man. And I was like, you've been avoiding me for so long, Stally. And I'm like, I'm never going to send him, like, beats, because he'll always have an email, and it says, business inquiries only, or booking inquiries, no beats, or something like that. And I'm just like, But, like, one day, maybe, if it ever happened, that would be great, because it would be cool to just work with someone that I've been a fan of for that long, but also someone from the area code too. So I would suggest, it depends on like what kind of hip hop you like, because it's more like traditional hip hop, but with its own like style. And he's worked with enough producers where he has different like styles of projects too. But a lot of cool.
Check him out.
Yeah, he's a great MC. He's worked with like Currency and like I said, Rick Ross, all kinds of different people. So, but he would probably be the one, I'd say.
That's cool.
If I had the opportunity, but we'll see.
I think that wraps up the episode, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man.
That was
I
fun,
appreciate you for even letting me on.
For sure.
First video podcast, I think, guys.
Yeah.
First one that I've done. I'm always doing remote stuff, but and I've only done one in person too. Yeah. So first time for everything.
What did you think
of this episode?
Yeah.
Or just the whole? I fucking love it, dude. So. You did a good
job
job of researching too, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. Check out the boys' channel. I'll put that down below. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.